I'm here to start the hand-up revolution. Our current model of humanitarian aid work is not working. Just for a moment, I'd like you to think about some things that have occurred in the last 10, 15 years that just stay with you forever. For me, it was when Princess Diana died, when the Twin Towers fell, and when the Asian tsunami happened way back in 2004. And I was sat in front of a computer screen in Tashkent, Uzbekistan, watching this disaster unfold. Waves 100 feet high, 230,000 dead, affecting 50 countries. And I had one thought, and one thought only: I must go. So I bought a one-way ticket from Tashkent to Phuket in Thailand. I got out of the taxi and I started to go towards this worst-hit area of Ban Nam Kem. This is where a village was completely destroyed. And as the taxi was moving along, it looked like a nuclear bomb had gone off. Cars on tops of houses, resorts crumpled like matchboxes, heavy navy boats thrown 2 miles inland, debris and glass everywhere. And as the scene got worse and worse, I said to the taxi driver, "You just got to stop." I got out of the car and I thought, take a few deep breaths, it'll be fine. And I walked to the cliff edge. And I looked over. And I wished I hadn't. The sea was full of dead bodies. I came back from the edge. I collapsed, my heart pounding, sweat trickling down my back, and I had one thought: how quickly can I get out of this country? Panic was taking over me, and the smell of decomposing bodies in hot, humid Thailand. As I sat there, I was catapulted back to when I was an 18-year-old nurse, and I could see my matron in front of me in a very stiff white apron and a stern face. And she said, "Nurse, it's not about you. You are here to serve. You are here to contribute. You are here to make a difference." This put me back into my body and back into my purpose of why I was there. I took a large gulp of water and I got back into the taxi. I arrived at this huge 5,000-strong survivor camp. It was dark, so I snuck into the communal tent, really anxious as to what I would see the next day. I'm a nurse, so I went straight to the first aid tent. The doctors were so busy. The injuries horrific. Can you imagine being hit by a washing machine coming at high speed? And as I wandered around the camp, this mum came up to me, and with outstretched hands, she said, "Linda, I can no longer feed my baby. Will you?" And I looked straight back at her and I said, "Absolutely not. I will not feed your baby." Why not? Handouts create beggars, create dependency. We need handouts in the initial phase of a disaster: tents, blankets, medicine. But as soon as we possibly can, we have to give people back their independence, their self-esteem, their dignity. So after having said this to her, I thought, right, now what am I going to do? So I ran up to Bangkok and I asked the British ambassador to throw a party, and they're very good at that. So I said to him, I want the international and national business leaders to come. And they did. And I said, I've got a challenge for you. I'm working in this camp down in Ban Nam Kem. I've got 5,000 Thai survivors who have lost everything. They were the gardeners, bellboys, cleaners in the hotel industry. The hotels have been destroyed. They are not being rebuilt. They're low educated. They can't relocate, but they need to earn money now. It's getting desperate. Now, why I love to work with the private sector is because they love challenges, they love competitions, and they suggest something is likely not to fail. Why? It's too embarrassing. So I said to them, who's up for coming with me? And 4 hands shot up. So I said, perfect, let's go down. So they looked around the environment, they talked to the people, they really analysed what was going on. They went back to Bangkok. A week later, I was called. Yes, Linda, we've got a solution. And we've done a 10-year business plan around it. I was impressed. But even more impressed when I heard what it was. They'd observed that lining the coast where the wave hit was acres and acres of rubber trees that had not been destroyed by the wave. And they'd seen that this is a viable business for the next 10 years. And they asked me to go down and ask the villagers if they thought it was a good idea. Because if the villagers don't own it, it will never work. So I asked the villagers, they said, yes, our grandparents would have harvested rubber, but we liked the hotels, we had tips, it was a bit glitzy. We'd worked out that to actually empower 4 families to start working in the rubber industry, all they required was a coconut shell on the tree, a knife to scour the tree, and a rubber mangle. Cost for those 4 families, the grand sum of $200. Within 4 months, they were earning 3 times what they ever earned in the hotel industry. That is a hand up. But the great thing was, it wasn't my idea, of course. I just brought some brilliant brains to sort it out. My tribe, I call them. So for the last 17 years, I have been a frontline humanitarian worker. I've worked in South America, Asia, and Africa. I've worked in the snowy Himalayas, in the jungles of Peru, and in the deserts of the Sahara. I've also worked in a lot of war-torn countries, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and I've had many bombs go off around me. So if I duck, if there's a loud bang, that's why. And I've had a gun at my head many times. I've also worked with many, many refugees. I so believe that what I need to do is to wear the moccasins of the community I'm with, that I sleep where they sleep, I live where they live, I eat what they eat, and mostly I drink what they drink. One of my main mentors was His Royal Highness Prince Charles. He knew that my big mission was to economically empower communities so that they can be independent. And he came to visit me in a refugee camp in Delhi back in 2001. And as we were discussing this, he said, absolutely, the private sector are the most underused resource in development work. But he said, when they get out their big checkbook and write this big amount of money and put it on the table, just leave it there, because you need it, but actually what you want is them. You want their entrepreneurial skills, their business acumen. You want their heart. You want their soul. And this has been, I know, the way I've been successful. Because money is just for the moment, however much we need it. But we need to get involved. So some of you might wonder what I'm doing here and how I got started. My first career, I was a nurse, and I loved it every second. Until 4 years later, I was driving from the north of England to the south. It was a dark winter's night, long before the time of mobile phones. And as I was driving to get home as fast as I could, almost these stabbing pains came behind my eyes. The curtains came down, and I went blind. Now, how I stopped on that hard shoulder, I will never know, intuition or angels. But I tell you, I sat there, angry, frustrated, so annoyed. Why me? Why has this happened to me? What have I done? I'll never see my children again. I'll never even work again. And then I started to pray to a God I hadn't thought about for a very long time. And I said, if my sight comes back, I promise that I will live my purpose and my passion. And I was lucky. My sight returned. And the doctor said it was hysterical blindness or stress blindness. And I went home to my children and I explained to them the situation. And I said, I need your help, because I couldn't just leave my job. I had to be able to adjust my life. So we worked on becoming positive. We turned off the news and put on dance music. We worked on changing our language. Then the time came when my son went to the army and my daughter went to university. And I sat down with them and I said, can I leave home now? Because I'd realized I wanted to go back into the caring profession, but not in safe, sanitized England. I believed I had the courage and the capacity to get out there on the front line and to help people with no financial security and no social security. So that's what I did. And I love what I do so much. This might shock you. I sold everything I own 15 years ago. And still today, I don't own a house, a car, a painting, or a book. I just have one suitcase. Can you imagine, ladies? One suitcase. But over the years, I have seen the good, bad, and ugly of charitable work. But we are, I believe, failing in many ways the people we're trying to help. And while I was in the Philippines after Typhoon Haiyan, and there I was, having a break, I was sitting outside a little tea shop. I like tea, I'm British. Sitting outside this little tea shop and just really looking around at what was going on. It was like Groundhog Day in a horror movie. The same things were happening that I'd seen in the previous 6 disasters. Trucks of clothes were coming in, given from our countries, that were then, by opportunists, diverted off to the market and sold, destroying their local clothing, livelihood and economy. It was as if we were actually doing things the wrong way round. And I thought, this is something we must change. And I read on the news, all this money is pouring in. Where is it going? The concerts that are being held for the Philippine relief, will the money reach us or will it be like Live Aid? And I could just see all these repeated patterns. And I would email my friends about, could they donate some money? And that donor fatigue was so real. Simultaneously, an African crisis had happened. Simultaneously, we'd have all these refugees. The pictures of the African kids with flies over them, people just get desensitized, detached, and depressed. And I realized what we had to bring to the table was fun. Yes, I deal with the most serious occupation, but we need fun. I was brought up with fun. My father's a magician, my grandfather was a magician, and I'm a magician. So watch out for your wallets. But I knew we had to bring fun into it. I thought, how can we do this? And I thought of The Amazing Race, The Survivor, MasterChef. I thought of competitions. I thought, let's make this a race for good. And who shall we invite to the table? Who normally doesn't get invited to solve humanitarian problems? The brightest and the best brains in the world. And I sat there with my pen and paper and I thought of Tesla, Under Armour, Virgin, Amazon, Salesforce. What great teams these would make to solve humanitarian problems. Let's take the top university students from the world. Now this could be fun and very effective. So I planned out this 21-day challenge. I call it the 21-day Global Impact Challenge. It's fun, it's competitive, it's time-bound, and there's a prize. The prize is whoever solves this real-life problem I give them, a problem I take from the front line and put into this format of competition, whoever wins comes with me to implement it. And I make it more difficult. There's a limited amount of resource, so not much money. As I've shown you, you don't need much money to solve some of these problems. But I could just see this working and completely flipping on its head the way we look at humanitarian work now. Let's bring in the best and the brightest brains to solve the toughest issues. Amazing, it's working, I love it. You're hearing about it here, but I tell you what, this is going to transform the world. Living on the front line has taught me many, many, many things, mostly appreciation. I don't have running water, electricity, a bed, or a shower. And as I remember back to my Thai business people coming to the front line the very first time, they were excited about the competition. They were engaged. They want to be of service. Contribution is the greatest human need. And let's make it fun. Everything is better when we're laughing and having fun. And at the end of the day, you come with nothing. You go with nothing. It's not about me. It's not about you. It's about us. So how do you want to be remembered? Thank you very much. Thank you.